There's a place on Earth so cold that people leave their car engines running all day, because if they turn them off, they may never start again. It's also home to a diamond mine so massive that helicopters are banned from flying over it, and a lake so deep it holds nearly a fifth of all the unfrozen fresh water on the entire planet. This is Siberia, a stretch of land larger than the United States and India combined, with almost nobody living in most of it, and a history dark enough to still shape an entire nation's memory today. To understand what extreme cold actually means, you have to go to a village called Oymyakon in the far northeast of Siberia. It holds the record for the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on Earth, with an officially recorded low of nearly -71 degrees Celsius, cold enough that exposed skin can suffer frostbite within minutes. Daily life here is built entirely around that reality. Cars are almost never turned off during winter because a cold engine, once it stops, often refuses to start again, sometimes requiring hours of work with an open flame just to get moving. Pens stop writing because the ink freezes solid inside them. Eyelashes freeze together within seconds of stepping outside. Even breathing outdoors for too long can become genuinely dangerous. And yet, roughly 500 people live here year-round, not as an experiment or a survival challenge, but as an ordinary home. Most work in reindeer herding or hunting, trades that have adapted generation after generation to conditions that would be lethal to almost anyone unprepared for them. Homes rely on centralized heating systems that, if they fail even briefly in the depths of winter, can become a genuine emergency for the entire village. The name Oymyakon itself is believed to come from a local Even word referring to a nearby unfrozen spring, a small irony given what the region has since become famous for. Scientists have studied the area for decades, trying to understand exactly why this particular valley, surrounded by mountains that trap cold air and block warmer currents from ever reaching it, became quite this extreme, colder even than most of the Arctic itself. Tourism has slowly grown around the extremity itself. A small number of visitors now travel here specifically to experience temperatures most of the world will never encounter, often timing their trip for the coldest weeks of the year, when local guides warn that uncovered skin can be seriously damaged in under 10 minutes. For the people who actually live here, none of this is extreme. It's simply Tuesday, in the coldest place people have ever chosen to call home. Roughly 2,000 kilometers west of Oymyakon sits a different kind of extreme entirely. The Mirny diamond mine, discovered by Soviet geologists in the 1950s, is one of the largest open-pit mines ever excavated by human hands, measuring over 1,200 meters across and more than 500 meters deep, a hole large enough to swallow entire city blocks. For decades, this single mine produced a significant share of the entire Soviet Union's diamonds, transforming a remote patch of Siberian wilderness into a heavily guarded, closely controlled industrial site almost overnight. An entire city, also named Mirny, grew up directly around the mine's edge, built specifically to house the thousands of workers the operation required, many of whom relocated from thousands of kilometers away for jobs that, at the time, paid extraordinarily well by Soviet standards. The scale of the pit itself creates a genuinely unusual hazard. The mine is so vast and so deep that it generates its own powerful downward air currents, strong enough that Russian aviation authorities have restricted helicopters from flying directly over the crater, following incidents where aircraft reportedly experienced serious difficulty maintaining control in the turbulence. Open-pit mining at Mirny eventually became impractical as the pit grew too deep and unstable to continue safely, and operations shifted underground in the 2010s, following newly excavated tunnels that continue extracting diamonds from beneath the original crater to this day. In winter, temperatures at the bottom of the pit can drop so low that diesel fuel and even rubber tires used in the mining operation have reportedly frozen solid, requiring specialized heating just to keep machinery functional. Today, the crater itself stands largely as a monument to Soviet-era industrial ambition, a scar in the landscape visible even from space, sitting beside a city that continues operating in one of the most remote and climatically extreme diamond mining regions found anywhere on the planet. Roughly 1,000 kilometers south of Mirny lies a body of water unlike almost anything else on the planet. Lake Baikal is the deepest lake on Earth, reaching depths of over 1,600 meters. And it's also the oldest, having formed somewhere between 25 and 30 million years ago, making it older than most of the mountain ranges surrounding it. Despite covering only a fraction of the world's surface fresh water by area, Baikal's extraordinary depth means it holds roughly 20% of all the unfrozen fresh water on Earth, more than all 5 of North America's Great Lakes combined. The water is so exceptionally clear that in winter, when the surface freezes into thick, transparent ice, it's possible to see several meters straight down through it, revealing rocks and formations on the lakebed below as if looking through glass. That clarity comes from an unusual ecosystem, largely unique to the lake itself. Baikal is home to thousands of species found nowhere else on Earth, including a small freshwater seal, the Baikal seal, whose presence this deep inland, thousands of kilometers from any ocean, remains something scientists still debate the full explanation for. Winter transforms the lake into one of its most striking states. The ice, in certain conditions, cracks into massive turquoise slabs and fissures that stretch for kilometers, occasionally releasing pockets of methane gas trapped beneath the surface that can be seen bubbling frozen mid-rise inside the ice itself. Local communities have relied on the lake for centuries, for transportation across its frozen surface in winter, for fishing in warmer months, and as a spiritual site held sacred by several indigenous Siberian peoples long before Russian settlement reached the region. Today, Baikal is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected in part because of ongoing concerns about pollution and industrial runoff threatening an ecosystem this singular and this old. A lake that has existed, largely unchanged, for longer than most of the animal life currently walking the earth around it. Trying to understand Siberia without crossing it is almost impossible. Stretching for more than 9,000 kilometers from Moscow to the Pacific Ocean, the Trans-Siberian Railway is the longest continuous railway line ever built, connecting landscapes so vast that the journey takes an entire week without leaving the same train. Along the way, passengers cross 8 time zones, pass through forests that seem endless, frozen rivers, isolated settlements, and cities separated by hundreds of kilometers of wilderness. But this railway wasn't built solely as an engineering achievement. It transformed Siberia forever, opening regions that had remained almost inaccessible for centuries, encouraging migration, trade, and the extraction of enormous quantities of natural resources. Timber, coal, gold, oil, natural gas, and diamonds could now move across an empire that suddenly felt far smaller than its geography suggested. Yet the railway also became deeply intertwined with one of the darkest chapters in Russian history. During the Soviet era, countless prisoners were transported eastward toward the Gulag system, a vast network of forced labor camps scattered across Siberia's most remote regions. Millions of people passed through these camps over several decades, where they were forced to build roads, railways, mines, and industrial projects under brutal conditions. Many never returned. The extreme climate that had protected Siberia through isolation became another weapon inside the camps. Winters lasting most of the year, temperatures far below freezing, exhausting physical labor, hunger and disease combined to create conditions that claimed countless lives. Entire settlements that exist today originally grew around these labor camps, leaving behind a landscape where ordinary towns sometimes stand beside places carrying extraordinary historical weight. Today, much of the railway is simply part of everyday life. Families travel across it, tourists experience one of the world's greatest rail journeys, and freight trains continue moving enormous quantities of resources across Eurasia. But beneath the rhythm of the tracks lies another story, one that reminds visitors that Siberia's vastness has served not only as a frontier of opportunity, but also, at times, as a prison from which there was almost nowhere left to escape. When most people hear the word Siberia, they imagine only one thing: endless snow. And it's true that few places on Earth test human endurance quite like this one. But the deeper you look, the harder it becomes to reduce Siberia to a frozen wasteland. This is a land where entire communities have learned to live through winters that can freeze ink inside a pen and engines inside a car. A place where one of the deepest scars of 20th century history unfolded across forests so vast that entire prison systems could disappear into them. A region that holds one of the oldest lakes on Earth, one of the largest diamond mines ever excavated by humans, and some of the richest reserves of natural resources on the planet. Its scale is almost impossible to comprehend. Covering nearly 10% of Earth's land surface, Siberia stretches farther than most countries could ever imagine, containing thousands of rivers, millions of lakes, and forests that absorb enormous amounts of carbon every year, quietly influencing the climate of the entire planet. Much of it remains sparsely populated, leaving huge areas where nature still dominates almost everything around it. For centuries, Siberia has been seen as both a punishment and a promise. To some, it represented exile, isolation, and survival against impossible odds. To others, it became a frontier of opportunity, scientific discovery, and extraordinary natural wealth. Somehow, it has always been both at the same time. Perhaps that's what makes Siberia so fascinating. Not because it's simply cold, or remote, or enormous, but because almost every place within it tells a completely different story. A frozen village where people carry on with ordinary lives at temperatures most humans will never experience. A mine visible from space. A lake older than human civilization itself. A railway that crosses an entire continent. And beneath all of it, a history that continues to shape millions of lives today. The next time you see Siberia on a map, remember that you're not looking at empty land. You're looking at one of the last truly colossal frontiers on Earth, where nature, history, and human resilience have been pushing against each other for centuries, and where the story is still far from over.